Some very unsettling scenes there. Now, New Zealand freelance journalist Tom Mutch is in the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, and he joins us now. Tom, thank you for your time. Tell us, where exactly are you, and are you safe?
Look, I am currently sitting here in a bomb shelter in what used to be, up until about 3 days ago, a normally functioning metro station. Now you can probably see the long lines of people behind me. They're all civilians that are sheltering here. We've heard there's going to be Russian aerial assaults on the city. It could be fairly indiscriminate, and so everyone down here is hiding out for the night.
Tom, tell us what's going on outside. Do you know much of what's happening around you upstairs, outside of that bunker? What's happening in Kiev right now?
So I haven't checked the latest updates, but we do understand that there have been explosions heard throughout the city. We're not aware of any details on casualties or exact numbers yet, but everyone here is very tense and very, very on edge. Large numbers of people have been trying to leave via the train station. Most of them want to get to Western Ukraine, which is considered much safer territory, because it really does look like over the next week the Russian army could launch a really serious offensive here.
Tom, what are your plans? And beyond that, do you believe Russia will take Ukraine?
Look, so my personal plans, I'm taking it 1 hour at a time, but we've been told by quite a lot of serious people that the time to leave, at least leave Kiev for the safety of Western Ukraine, is within the next 24 hours. So I think that might be my plan. Will Russia take Ukraine? Look, the Ukrainians are extremely good fighters. They're extremely passionate about defending their country, but the Russians do have an absolutely overwhelming advantage in terms of their air power, in terms of their just plain numbers, in terms of the quality of their weapons and their communication systems. If they want to take Ukraine by force, it is a matter of time. Will they be able to hold Ukraine in the face of a very, very determined resistance? That really, really remains to be seen. And for my money, I don't think they will be able to do it for very long.
Tom, news just in that the EU has frozen the assets of Putin and his foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, and Boris Johnson just announced that the UK is likely to will follow suit, but they won't ban travel. Is the global response against Putin forceful enough, do you think?
Well, it's kind of forceful enough for what? I honestly don't think at this point Putin has played his cards. He is committed to making this assault on Ukraine, and this is not a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war of aggression being waged. And I don't think almost anything on earth could stop him in terms of diplomatic sanctions. It's just, he's already made up his mind, and a mind that he seems to be losing, to be quite frank.
Tom, what's happening between China and Russia? Are the two deepening their ties, and if so, why?
So China's response so far has been fairly unclear. It's kind of put out in sort of milquetoast statements calling for, dialogue, and they're saying they're concerned about the escalation in violence. Apparently, China is still going to retain trade links, but I think they'll be watching for two very important reasons. One, they'll be watching for whether the Russians are a capable military threat. Two, we all know that they have their eye on the conquest of Taiwan by military means, and I think they'll be watching very, very closely to see what the response is as they think about contemplating a massive military action of their own.
Tom, in terms of New Zealand's response, now I spoke briefly to the former Minister of Defence, Ron Mark, and his take on it is that the West is weak and that we need to tackle tyranny on its head. Do you think New Zealand is doing enough in terms of our response? The Prime Minister before spoke about the sanctions that New Zealand's imposing, which is export controls and travel bans. Is that enough? What should New Zealand be doing?
Look, so New Zealand can't act very well against Russia on its own. It should be part of, what I think New Zealand can provide. It can't provide, it's not big enough to provide the economic clout, but it can, as it has in the past, provided some kind of moral leadership. So look, the main things that can be done are to kick Russia out of the SWIFT banking system. A lot of people are calling for a potential no-fly zone over Ukraine. Now, that's a very, very dangerous step that could involve, effectively NATO and Russia going to war. So I think New Zealand can take moral leadership on this issue, but it can't necessarily be much of a major actor in this crisis on its own.
Tom, one of our last questions here now, the latest that we're seeing on this side of the world is that a lot of civilians have been asked to take up arms and have in fact done so. Do you fear that maybe you'd become involved in that? Do you have any plans to become involved in that respect?
Well, I mean, I'm never going to pick up a gun. As a journalist, it's the worst thing you can do. It makes you a combatant and it puts the lives of all of your colleagues at risk because you can be seen as a partisan fighter. But I have seen many, many men and women walking around the streets of Kiev with Kalashnikov rifles. I interviewed one young woman in this bunker just before I got on the phone with you. I said, what are your plans for the next week? She said, make Molotov cocktails. For those who don't know, they're basically a kind of a homemade explosive that you can make with household chemicals and goods and gasoline. So, and you throw them at Russian tanks and hopefully they'll be able to stop them, but who really knows?
Tom, just for those of us who are watching from here in the comfort of our safe spaces here in Aotearoa, how many people are in that bunker and how many bunkers are there? Is there enough resources for those who aren't involved in the war or in the battle?
Give us a little bit of a look around.
Yes, please. Here,
probably a couple of hundreds because this is only one terminal. There are a good number of rooms. But however, we are in the situation where pardon me, there are thousands of people at many different bunkers like this, and so we can't really know how many people are in need, how many people will be staying here. Some people have basically ended up living here because their homes are not safe anymore.
Tom, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and all our thoughts are with all of you over there in Ukraine right now and everywhere else across Europe, and watching scenes unfold from here as, we can't imagine what you're all going through at this present time. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome, and thank you for having me on at such an important time, such an important topic.